Welcome to another episode of the On.NET Show. Today we've got Scott Hunter, and we're going to be talking about .NET Core 3.
Awesome.
Awesome. So, and today we're shooting in Building 18.
Yeah, so we're on the first floor, Building 18. This is where both Richard and I work.
Yeah.
Most
Every
of the
day.
.NET team is down here, but there's .NET in a lot of the floors and even other buildings like 17 as well. So.
Right, and the other team that's down here is actually C++.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so yeah, we shipped Preview 3,
A couple days ago.
a couple days ago, yeah. How's it going?
I think it's going great.
Okay.
So .NET Core 3, let's just roll back and talk about what the goals were with .NET Core 3. .NET Core has been a journey all along. .NET Core 1 to me was we needed to have an open source cross-platform .NET, and in that version we got barely the basics running and got ASP.NET Core and EF Core running on top of it, and so that was kind of our first entry of getting a new fully open source cross-platform product out there. We learned a lot from that.
Yeah,
feedback from the customers.
We had some bad bugs actually for the first like month or so, but those are all behind us now.
Well, if you remember, we thought also that we could get away with not having all those APIs.
Yes, that turned out that plan didn't work.
And then so the .NET Core 2 wave was about taking the .NETs we have and unifying them with .NET Standard. So you could expect the same code to run on all the .NETs, whether it was desktop, whether it's core, whether it's a Xamarin application. The other part was, as part of that effort, we brought a ton of APIs back to the platform.
20,000.
And so that was kind of our make .NET Core available to more people.
Yeah.
And then the feedback we got after that was, hey, we're seeing all this innovation in .NET Core. What about us that are building desktop applications?
Yes, absolutely.
And interestingly enough, if you're a web developer, we have millions of people that are building desktop applications on .NET today.
WPF and Windows Forms.
Right. And so Core 3 is all about bringing those desktop workloads to .NET Core. It's more than just WPF and WinForms. We also did some analysis and found out that Entity Framework 6 was commonly used in many of the desktop applications, and so
Meaning not just server.
yes, and so we're bringing that back as part of Core 3 deployment. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so this is similar to what we've always had, but the basic idea is with .NET Framework, there's only one on the box, and so all your applications have to agree on what the version of .NET Framework is going to be. With .NET Core, we don't have that anymore at all. You can have as many versions of .NET Core. You can ship .NET Core with your application. And new in .NET Core 3 is all applications get exes by default. Actually, that's not what this is talking about, but I still wanted to say it. All applications get exes, which feels normal for .NET applications. And we also have self-contained exes, which is basically you have a directory that every single file you need to run that application is there. You can zip it up, Xcopy it, it all works.
Yeah, the way I like to think of the single exe is, let's say you're a .NET developer today, and you see this, and you're like, I want to use .NET Core 3 and C# 8 today. Historically, that would mean go ask your IT department to install a new version of .NET on all the machines in your enterprise, and then you can go deploy that application. With the self-contained exes, it means any development team can decide to use the latest, greatest features they want in .NET Core in a WinForm WPF application, and when you're done, you compile to a single exe that contains all of the .NET Core framework, and you can take that application and put it on any machine in your business, and it will just work without having anything installed on the machine.
And no admin install, blah, blah, blah. So actually, you know this, but I was just on a customer trip this past week. I went to South Carolina to help some developers port their applications, their WPF applications from .NET Framework to .NET Core. And it was this moment where I realized that our strategy over the last 2-3 years was working, because there were all these APIs that these applications needed. Because of all those APIs we'd added back to the product and also into the Windows compatibility pack, it literally took us 45 minutes to port a .NET Framework WPF app to .NET Core. Now this one was not huge, but that was absolutely amazing. And also, they were able to move from EF6 to EF Core in about 4 or 5 hours. and then they got a ton of benefit from that. And
Perf-wise?
they got a 30% query time benefit from that, and they were just like, you know, trying to hold on to the table kind of thing. And we didn't have to, you know, this wasn't a sales trip, you know, we were trying to help this customer, but there was no point where we had to kind of sell them on what we were doing. It was just, they absolutely wanted what we were giving them, and it was easy. So they were so happy.
I had a similar experience when I was traveling for business recently as well, and I'm talking to a customer and they're like, we can use the latest features today
Yeah.
and not have to wait for anything to happen. I'm like, you can use the latest features right now.
Yeah.
And they were like, sold.
Yeah.
Let's look at the other stuff. We also have an awesome client web technology where you can now run C# in the browser, and you can call C# from your JavaScript, and we'll do a demo of that. Performance has always been a huge part of .NET Core, and every version of .NET Core is going to have more and more performance improvements. So you're going to continue to see a bunch of performance. And then finally, we have some new C# language features that we're adding as well, and so you'll be more productive and hopefully less error-prone in the applications that you write in .NET Core 3.
Right. Well, I think just to say one more thing about the C# language work is it's a major version. It's 8.0 that we're shipping this time, and the second part is sometimes in the past, and people have probably been able to observe this, that sometimes the language team works separately from the framework team, and then things don't necessarily fit together quite as well as they could. This time around, the language team, the runtime team, the framework team, like everyone worked super closely together, and so these features really work well.
Right. Well, that's been something as we've done this core effort. We've been moving all these teams closer and closer together.
Yeah.
One of the ones that I think of, it was in the 2-wave, was Span, which we did across all of the same
teams.
collections of
Yeah.
teams. And so everybody benefited, and you get a great rich programming experience. You got faster ASP.NET, and now it's actually ingrained in .NET Standard 2.1 as well. So, yeah, good stuff. Let's actually talk about one more thing about the desktop.
Yes.
As we were working on this plan to bring the UI stacks to .NET Core, we were all sitting in a room going, hey, we're the open source .NET. It would be awful to bring these new frameworks and not make them open source.
Exactly.
And so, a lot of work happened inside of Microsoft, and a lot of teams were very supportive to help us get WinForms, WPF, and some of the XAML UI all open sourced. A lot of it's in GitHub today. More of it's going to come next month, and hopefully by the time build comes around in May, most of it will be there.
Exactly.
But we've already seen a big uptick of people filing issues and PRs, and so the open sourceness is already feels like it's working.
Yeah. So I had this one question, which was kind of CoreFX and Core CLR and Roslyn. Was that like a one-hit wonder type of thing? You know, we got the heavy amount of engagement there, and that was the last time, or you know, is it the case that you bring, or not you, we bring any significant repository to GitHub, and people will just kind of start engaging from day one? And the second one definitely proved to be the case. And it's not that it was a surprise, but it was this huge validation that our open source strategy is working.
Right. Which is alluding to, we actually measured the engagement level of customers on GitHub against CoreFX versus WinForms and WPF, and we found that the correlations are actually very equal. The first couple of months of engagement are roughly the same against both of those, which means people are just as engaged on these as they were on, and these are in some ways more complicated stacks than the BCL type stuff.
Well, and just so people understand, when we do those kind of analyses, we're just using public GitHub APIs to get data out of GitHub about like how many issues are filed on a given day.
I was just going to say, anybody can go to GitHub.
Yeah, exactly.
You can go to GitHub and click on the repository and go look and see how many issues are filed, how many PRs are filed.
Exactly.
That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's. This just kind of shows where we were with .NET Core 2. We were mainly a web and cloud .NET Core, and you can see as the 3.0 wave comes, we're bringing desktop, we're bringing IoT, we're bringing machine learning. And so .NET Core is getting much broader. And we'll do demos of AI today as well.
Yeah, so one question, which is really feedback that I've gotten, is like, oh my gosh, like when you only had the two things there, I kind of felt like it was a slim product and lean and mean. Now it feels bloated. It feels like you've just kind of gotten back to where you were with .NET Framework. Can you speak to the fact that I hope we're not bloated? Even though we do more?
We talk a whole bunch about not bloating the framework, and things like AI. Remember, AI is a NuGet package that you install on top of .NET Core.
IoT is the same.
IoT is the same. So we're not going to go make your ASP.NET application, for example, carry AI and IoT and other workloads as well. So the idea for us is to keep core itself as small as possible and just the APIs that are shared across all the workloads, and keep the other stuff kind of separate.
Right, and I assume I'm not going to get WPF in a Linux Docker container.
No, you will not.
Yeah, okay, good.
But somebody might ask for that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it is exciting to me to see the rich growth that we have as we add these more workloads. These are the big themes. We kind of talked about them in the earlier slides, but the big themes in Core 3 are, hey, desktop is popular. Let's get those desktop workloads going. Machine learning and AI is something you hear about every day somewhere in the industry, and we want to make sure that if you're a .NET customer, you don't feel like you're being left out. You don't have to be a Python developer to add ML to your .NET application. You can use .NET and the tools you already know to add ML to your existing applications. And then once again, as you said, for Core 1 and 2, web was the primary thing, and we're going to make sure the web gets a lot of new stuff as well. So it's not just about desktop. If you're a web developer, there'll be lots of exciting things for you here as well. And we can jump into a few of these.
Yeah, awesome.
So we'll start off, and as you said, major language version, C# 8. I think in some cases this is, it is a major version, and I think of async await as the last big thing that I, and I think
that you use,
that I really think of that I see all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of these that I see in C# 8 that really excite me. Ranges is one. I'm not going to go deep into it, but my favorite example of ranges is actually if you do a for each. You don't have to go over everything now. You can actually do a subset of a for each, but it can be used in a variety of places. Nullable reference type. This is my favorite one. In fact, it's such a favorite of mine. Let me
do a demo.
Let me do a demo.
Well, I think we both know null reference exception, which we sometimes call NREs, is like the most pervasive error on our platform,
yes.
And that's what this is kind of about.
So this is an app like any of us have written. I've got a string, and then somewhere I call that string in a console write line, and obviously you don't want to use a null there, and my app crashes immediately. Typically this doesn't happen this obviously when you can see it on the screen. You might call a method and not realize you passed a null to it or something like that, and Mads on the team was and a bunch of other folks thought about this for a long time. What language features could we add to go help solve this? And so check this out. I'll go to my CS Proj, and I've just got it commented out. I'm going to uncomment that out.
Right, so this is a new feature that you have to opt into.
You have to opt into. This is something we would not turn on by default because it is going to throw a bunch of warnings and errors at you.
Right, so we'll probably never turn this on by default. Is that fair?
Maybe major version boundary, or at some point we've analyzed enough features code.
Okay.
I mean, to be very honest, we actually tried to turn this on for the BCL, and we've now decided that it'll be .NET Core 3.1 will be the first version that we actually turn this on in the BCL, because when you turn this on, as you're going to see in a second, it makes you program more defensively than you were before. So I go back to the same app.
Okay, now we have a squiggly.
And now I have a squiggle on my null. And it's like, hey, converting null literal or possible null values to non-nullable types, what's a potential fix here? And let's go add the potential fix here. Right. What it's saying is a string can either have a value or be null. But by default, if a string declaration by itself doesn't signify that it can be either of those states.
Right, so when you turn on this feature, you're basically making reference types be the same as value
types
in terms of the nullability.
Right.
They're the same.
Yes.
Which is very different.
And so it's like, hey, you're assigning something, and this could be two states. So I did what it said. I now declared that my string could be either null or it could be a string.
Yeah.
But now it's even smarter. Notice down here,
Well, now it just keeps on following a path.
I get a squiggle saying, hey, possible dereference of a null reference. And so
it's interesting you don't get one on the first S. I wonder if null, toString on null.
this is legal. It'll print nothing.
It'll print nothing.
This one will crash because I tried to reference inside of a null type. And this one's simple as well. If I just say if S not equal null, let's put the code inside of there.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah.
I'm not using any crazy syntax.
Yeah.
All I did is put the null check in, and so by turning the feature on, it noticed that my string could be null or have a type.
Right.
It made me declare that it could be that way.
Right. So this code is now provably correct.
Provably correct, and I'm good to go. Now, as I said, this is turning this on in a large project could be some work, but you're going to see us actually turn this on in the BCL, and we're going to go try to make sure that our code is as correct as possible.
Right, but the kind of end goal of this is reliability of applications.
Right.
It's not a performance feature. It's about avoiding unhandled exceptions, basically.
Write safer code.
Yeah, good plan.
So that's nullable reference types, my favorite of these features. Async streams. You want to talk to that?
Yeah. So this is probably my favorite feature.
This is actually my favorite one, but it's harder to explain.
The basic issue is that we've had for each and IEnumerable since the very beginning of time, and then later on we brought in async await. Those two features do not work until now. Those two features do not work at all because if you think of IEnumerable, there's basically move next and current. There's no move next async. There's no opportunity for each to wait. It always has to return immediately. So it's effectively a blocking API.
It's a blocking call.
It's a blocking call. So the team worked on this. I think we discussed this for what, like 5 years?
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. So the basic idea is we asyncified. Well, for starters, we couldn't change IEnumerable in place because that would have been a breaking change and everything would have been bad. So we made a new interface that's very, very similar. And it basically has move next async on it. And it's been wired up into the language, so you can do await for each, and then everything works as you would expect. Now, this isn't shown in this slide, but I just want to say it. This slide's all about consumption. So you also will want to produce an async enumerable. So for the most part, you will never do that manually. You do use the yield return pattern, and then the compiler actually generates all the right code for you. And so that's what I do. I think this feature is amazing.
We don't have an example of it here, but doing a file upload in ASP.NET looks beautiful with this feature. So, and it's async as well, which means it's doing all the right things. There's switch expressions, recursive patterns, default implementations. There's a whole bunch more C# features here. We're not getting into those. There'll be another episode of this where Mads is going to come on and talk about all these. Our goal is not to be super deep in all these things. Well, let's go back to desktop now. So the desktop is more than just bringing WinForms and WPF to core. If you look historically at the desktop, we created Universal Windows Platform, UWP, a couple of years ago, and it has the more modern controls, the ones that do touch, the ones that do signing and stuff like that. And so using a feature called XAML Islands, you can take these features from the other framework and move them into a WinForm or WPF application. Kevin Gallo at Build last year showed I think it was a WinForm application where he brought a touch control in, and you could sign your expense report directly in that application, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think of this as similar to the one ASP.NET, where you could use MVC or Web API or Web Forms all together in the same application. This is saying you don't have to rewrite your application to take advantage of one of the newer controls. And that's kind of how I think of that.
Yeah, well, for the last while, we were saying developers had to choose between this one option or another, and now we're saying you don't have to choose.
Don't choose, use whatever you want to use.
Yeah. I think another key point is, and this was definitely part of my experience with this customer last week, which was like when we did ASP.NET Core, that was a new version of ASP.NET. Like we made a bunch of changes. It was very similar to the ASP.NET that came before, but people had to move to that fairly intentionally.
You copy paste code.
Yeah. This is extremely different. This is, we took WPF and Windows Forms wholesale to .NET Core. So that's why I had this great experience with this customer, is they literally just took source code
Right.
and recompiled it, and with just a few tweaks here and there, it just worked. And so there's no reimagining of WPF or Windows Forms. Yet at the same time, we are actually making improvements too.
Right, there are improvements, and as I said, you can actually use the UWP controls can be embedded in these applications. These applications have access to all the Windows 10 APIs.
That's right.
And the XAML islands and the Windows 10 APIs are available also to the .NET Framework 4.8 apps as well. When we first started doing this, I started earlier saying we have millions of desktop developers. That's actually a primary reason we did this feature, but there's also lots of technical reasons why you might want to move a desktop application to core. We talked about one earlier, the side-by-side. I can build a brand new application using the latest C# features, the latest .NET Core features, and I can put it on any desktop without worrying about installing a framework. I can do that as a single exe if I want to. I think the second bullet's my favorite bullet to talk about, which is
got some garbage cleanup going on
there's
over there.
kitchen cleanup happening on right now. A lot of folks understand that one of the reasons that .NET Core exists is because .NET Framework is a global installed Windows component.
Yeah, it's on like almost 2 billion machines.
It's on billions of machines. And so if we make a change in that .NET, then it could break applications on over 1 billion machines. And so we found ourselves constrained by that. And the side-by-side nature of Core allows us to go and change APIs and make bug fixes that we would not normally be able to do in .NET Framework. And so by moving your desktop application to Core, you're going to be able to take advantage of some of the new APIs that are only available in Core. You're going to be able to take advantage of like C# 8, which will only be available in Core. And even some of the APIs you've used forever. At Build last year, I showed an application where we were just iterating all the files in a directory. And that iteration was about 100% faster in Core than it was in .NET Framework. And that's because we changed those APIs. And we could do that because we're not going to break any apps by making those changes. And so you're going to get a ton of performance improvements. You mentioned before, they moved to EF Core, which got a more perf as well.
Oh yeah, big
You're going to get better perf, newer APIs. It's just the newer VCL is going to be on Core because we can make changes we couldn't make in .NET Framework.
Yeah, so one of the ways I think about it is, in like the last 5+ years that we had worked on .NET Framework, we had developed a conservative engineering culture.
Yes.
And as we started the .NET Core project, it took a little bit of time, but certainly by the time we came to .NET Core 2.0, we had developed a innovation-oriented engineering culture, and it's just like it's so obvious now. Like if you listen to people's conversations, they're extremely, even though it's like a bunch of the exact same people, it's just so different to hear those people talking now, and it's awesome.
We did Span in less than a year. That normally would have taken us 3 years to do in the previous culture.
In the old world.
.NET Core 3.0 Preview 3 just came out. You can use it with both VS 2019, RC, and VS Code. We still have a few limitations. We're slowly working through those. The visual designers for WinForms and WPF are not yet available. There's workarounds. There's an episode of this that Alia and I did that will actually show you those workarounds. And I've got a link here to the V6 that you can install in VS Code that will give you access to the latest language features in VS Code if you want to use that today.
Yeah, if you want to use C# 8.
Correct.
And those links and the instructions are in the .NET Core 3.0 Preview 3 blog post.
So I was going to do a quick demo of the desktop. So let's go to Visual Studio, back to our console project.
Okay.
And I'm going to do File New. And for this, I'm on the RC of 2019,
right.
And I've got Preview 3 installed. And if I go over to Desktop, for the first time ever, we've got WPF app.NET Core and WinForm app.NET Core. So we've added the core templates to here, so you can create these right from Visual Studio.
That's amazing to see.
It is. But you'll notice something that we said the slides is still missing is here I am in my application, and my form is, if it's a form, if I click it,
right.
Nothing really happens, no designer loads up.
Right, so this is not the right experience.
This is not the final experience we're going
okay.
to get. We actually have some preview bits, and so I'm going to show a little bit more here. Let's go and we'll edit the CS proj. And I'll go grab some code I got over here.
Okay.
And we'll talk to it. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding an item group, and inside of that I'm saying, hey, for the form1.cs, it's really a form.
Okay.
And by saving that, that'll tell Visual Studio
and
that
it just updated.
It's a form. So you can see that my form icon showed up, and now if I double click on this,
Ba-doom.
yeah. You'll see the beginnings of the designer come up for the first time, where we've got the form showing up for the designer. We'll show a lot more of this at Build in May.
So here, I got a question. Is this form, is this somehow like .NET Core code running in .NET Framework, or is this like literally .NET Core code running?
This is .NET Core code running. So what actually happens is when I double click that form, we actually kicked off an external process and reconstituted the form in that process. That process is a .NET Core 3 process, because you can't really load .NET Core 3 inside of the .NET Framework. You can't really have...
Right, because Visual Studio is a .NET Framework
It's a .NET Framework application,
right.
So we launch a separate process, and then we host the HWin from that process inside of Visual Studio.
Wow.
So it's out of proc is the term we actually use
yeah.
inside of Microsoft for this. But as you would expect, I should be able to control F5 the application, run the application, I can debug it. So we're making a step forward on the desktop journey here.
Nice.
Next thing, as I said earlier, .NET Core 3 is not all about desktop. We want to make sure that you got new language features. ASP.NET is a huge piece of .NET Core, and so we're going to quickly go through a couple of the cool features we have in ASP.NET 3. The first one is gRPC. This is one of the things that excites me. Is a lot of customers come and say, are you going to add WCF back to .NET Core? And right now, it's been too big of a framework and too heavy of a framework for us to port in. But I think gRPC in some ways is even a better solution, because if you have WCF code, it's great to talk .NET to .NET. You can talk .NET to SOAP. But the cool thing about gRPC, which stands for Google RPC, is it is a project that Google has in GitHub, and it supports many programming languages. So if you build a gRPC server in .NET Core, you can call that from Java, from Node, from Python, from
right.
Basically vice versa. And in the same way, if you have a Python server, you can call it from .NET as well. So gRPC is exciting to me because it actually gives you a high-performance RPC mechanism across a bunch of languages.
Right. So this, because it has this RPC thing in the name, it's different than REST. Right. Independent of performance and all that kind of thing.
I like to say more contract or tightly bound.
Yeah.
Meaning that because with a RESTful endpoint, you can add new parameters to it, and if the caller doesn't specify them, that's okay.
Yeah.
If you write your REST calls correctly, not everybody does. But with more of a contract-based system, the contracts need to be the same on both the client and the server for these things to work. So they're more tightly bound, but you get better perf.
Because of that.
Because of that. And a lot of our developers are used to this programming style. And so
absolutely.
I'm happy to bring it to core. Worker services. This is more of how you build a Windows service, is what I would like to say, or a Linux daemon. I want to have a process that kicks off, and then maybe it's going to watch a message queue, and when it sees something come in the message queue, it's going to going to act on that.
Yeah, so in early Azure, we had web role and worker role.
Yes.
This is kind of similar to the
worker role.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we did though is we can actually create one. It's in the Visual Studio that I'm using right now. And if you create one, it's very simple. It gives you all of the web host features of an ASP.NET project. So you get configuration, you get dependency injection, but you don't get the cost of having the full web stack there.
Right.
If you don't want. So
because that's not what this whole thing is about, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it takes some of those features and passes them through to a console or a long-running worker process.
Yeah, because many of these apps won't expose an internet endpoint at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Razor components. We'll do a demo of that in a second. That's basically letting you build client-side applications, SPA applications using C#. You don't have to use a framework like React, Angular, or Vue. You can do it all in C# if you want. Use the same objects on both sides. And this is the final one is one I'm really happy to finally have coming out, which is we've been shipping web APIs for many years. They're hard to actually secure. And so this is going to make it very easy to take Identity Server and bolt it to an ASP.NET Core web API and secure that.
Makes sense.
ASP.NET Core 3 Razor components. This is what we talked about before. This is building client-side UI in .NET using Angular Reactor View without using Angular Reactor View. You get to have .NET on both sides. So that's a cool benefit of this. It's strongly typed, which means if you change a type on the server, you don't have to wait until you run the client app and go, oh, it doesn't work. You're going to get a compile error just like you would in a WinForm app or something like that.
Which is huge.
Exactly.
Yeah, debugging runtime errors is not a good.
I was just talking to a customer,
be.
and they're like, "Yeah, that's." They're using Angular, and they were saying their only negative was, yeah, it's kind of we find the bugs late. You don't finally make compile time. WebAssembly. This WebAssembly is really cool tech. It allows you to run .NET or C++ or Java or a variety of technologies in the browser. It's different than the plugins we've had in the past because these things still run in the sandbox of the browser, which means, yeah, you can run .NET in the browser, but you can't touch the file system or the registry or destroy your machine or something like that. So this is like the benefit of all the plugins with all the security of the browser. So you get high performance C# in browser.
It's a sweet spot.
It's awesome.
But you also didn't mention something, which is it also works on mobile.
This works on any browser.
Yeah. But those plugins that we had before
never worked on the mobile browsers.
Yeah.
And so this technology works on all the browsers: Chrome, Edge, Safari, Firefox. It runs on the mobile versions of all those browsers. So any of these devices today should work with this stuff.
Awesome.
Should be good. And let's do a real quick demo of this too. So let's jump over here. I've got a web app here, and this would be my our favorite .NET bot, and I want to be able to click it and make it change when I click it.
Okay, so it doesn't do that yet.
It doesn't do anything right now. It does nothing.
Okay.
And so normally you would write some JavaScript in this page to go find that image, but because this is .NET, let's go just write some .NET. So I want my URL to be in a string. So we'll just go create an image URL, and I'll just go grab the string right up from here.
Okay.
Already got a string. And now it's Razor, so let's go replace that string with my image URL.
Oh, I see.
So now instead of just grabbing that like that, my image tag is going to grab the image URL directly from this code. The next thing you should know, if I can write some JavaScript, I would probably have a change image method. Well, we're going to write C#. So we'll write change image. And let's go change that right there. Put the @ in there so it calls the .NET code. Remove the parents here. And this code is simple. I would just say, hey, if image URL contains a 1,
switch it to a 2.
do something.
Okay.
Else do something else.
Okay.
Simple. And then I would say image URL equals image URL dot replace. Replace the 1 with the 2.
Okay, that makes good sense. I'm guessing there's an image with that name on the server.
I'll show that. Yeah, I have 2 bots.
Okay. I see. So we're just going to keep on flipping between the two.
We're going to flip between the 2. But normally you would write this in JavaScript.
Yeah.
And so in this case, this is all C#.
Yeah, because otherwise it'd be a var there instead of string.
And you can look under my images.
Yeah, we got
.NET Bot 1, .NET Bot 2. There they are. And so at this point, hopefully I can just run this code.
Right, so we're doing a little bit extra compilation here of some sort.
And actually it's complaining, it's saying that it thinks the app is already running.
So
We'll just do a stop, we'll just give it a chance to stop here, and we'll just run it one more time. There we go.
that looks better.
And so now, clicking the button, all in C#. But you know, the whole app looks like a SPA app. As I click around,
Yeah.
the URLs, you know, the whole screen doesn't redraw. I click buttons, the screen just refreshes dynamically.
You're like a full-on front-end web dev now.
So you know, so it's really cool tech. I think developers are going to really love it. And I'm sure Dan's got a talk on this.
Oh yeah, I'm actually still amazed at how fast that runs. It's still kind of blowing my mind, even though there's not a ton of code there. It's pretty awesome.
You can even do crazier stuff. I've shown some demos where you can actually take the Chrome debugger and actually step through the C# in Chrome, which is just crazy.
Yes.
We got one more thing to talk about, and that's machine learning. At Build last year, we introduced the first version of ML.NET, the first preview of ML.NET. And the way I think of this is the ML space is populated with lots of Python because it's an awesome technology for taking a bunch of data sources and crunching data together and merging it together. But so a lot of the stuff you read about machine learning is all in Python.
Yep.
We found a library inside of Microsoft that we weren't even aware of, I don't think, at one point. It was a .NET machine learning library that various teams like Office and Bing were using. And we're like, hey, we should go and publish this and make it open source and turn it into a product. And that's what ML.NET is. And this enables you to take your existing .NET projects and add machine learning to them. When we first started doing this, this screen would have looked very different. If you go back to Build, this would have had a whole bunch of ML terms, like sentiment analysis would have been called binary classification, which Rich and I don't even know what that even means.
Yeah, failed the test.
And so what we've done as a team is we basically said, let's go try to take all the ML concepts and break them down into things that we think developers would want to do, like sentiment analysis.
I know what that is.
Is somebody happy or sad about something like that? Image classification, is that a dog or a cat? Forecasting, are we going to grow or are we going to shrink? Recommendations, we see a lot of the stores we go and shop on. Hey, you bought this, maybe you want to buy this as well. And so we've broken all these ML things down into a bunch of concepts that we think the regular .NET developer could understand. I've got a link at the bottom of this page that has a sample for each of these things. In fact, we can go follow that.
Right, so this is where all of our samples are.
So if you look at this website, this is my the GitHub account that has all of our samples. And if I scroll down, you can see, as I was saying before, the sentiment analysis is really binary classification, but you and I would not have known that.
Nope.
But in this case, we've broken down all the ML tasks by a bunch of scenarios that we think affect most of our customers. Sentiment analysis, spam detection, fraud detection. And you can see there's a whole bunch of these things. We're continually adding more. The goal is to take all these complex machine learning ideas and break them down into things that our customers can actually apply to their projects.
Right, so if you're a developer who works on an application, these might fall into what you're responsible for just perfectly.
That's my hopes. My hope is you will go, oh, recommendation, product recommendation. I have products, I want to do that. Or sales forecast, I want to go do that.
Totally.
So that's the hope, is that these break into that. I've got a demo of one of these. This is an app that Steve Sanderson built. It's a Blazor app, comically. And let's run it. And the cool thing about this app is it's going to show you how little code is actually required to consume some machine learning with a .NET project. So here's my application loading up.
I also think with some of those things, there's types of whole categories of applications that the developers in some random company never had the ability to build before.
Right.
And so in terms of them like satisfying the needs of the business, their ability just stepped up a ton.
Right.
Which is
I just showed a customer right before this meeting. I was going through some of these, and they were like, "Oh, we can take this data, run it through this, and do this." And I was showing them that I don't know what these algorithms are. We have some other tech that we're going to show at Build that'll actually help you find your algorithms. But
awesome.
here's this this app, and the idea behind this is, in the .NET world, we have blog posts, we have GitHub. We have a variety of places where our customers can go and write feedback or write comments about us. What if we wanted to know, Twitter would be another example. What if I wanted to have the ability to know that somebody wrote something negative about us and have somebody on the team go identify that, or somebody wrote something really good about us and we would go tell the vice president about that.
Yeah, totally, definitely.
It goes both ways. And so this is showing that in this application I can do things like, this is a very awesome and cool show.
Oh wow, it like dynamically moves. That's amazing.
And so as I was typing the words, it was dynamically moving the slider.
Whoa.
Rich is sad, and you get it.
Apparently sad though is only 49%. I would have thought it was worse.
The joke about this is the model we have here doesn't have many words in it, so it's not a great model. But okay. I want to show one more aspect of this, which is...
So we're not going to build an Azure service on this particular model?
No.
Okay, just checking.
So I put a breakpoint in the application, and I did that because I wanted to step in the code and show you what the code looks like to do this. So the code to consume the model, and so that sample would show you how to build a model is, here's my model, it's a static in my application,
yep,
and I load it from the zip file.
Okay, wow.
Once I load the model, I call model.predict. From that, I get a number from 0 to 1, we convert that to a percentage, and it updates.
That's basically it.
That is basically it. So as I come out of here, there's happiness at 49.904, and you're done.
Wow.
And so I want to show this is kind of a hero version of this, but this is the goal of ML.NET, is to take these complex scenarios and turn them into something which is, I'm not a hardcore ML developer, but hey, I know how to load models and call predict methods on them and use them that way. And so hopefully those samples you see up there will help you, you do stuff like that. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And there's the next preview of ML.NET is available right now, 0.11.
Okay.
You can find that just by going to dot.net and clicking machine learning on the homepage.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow this crazy link. We plan to RTM this at Build. So in May of this year, there'll be a 1.0 of this. We just did the demo. I think the recap of this is .NET Core 3 Preview 3 is available right now. ML.NET 0.11 is available right now. And Visual Studio 2019 RC is available right now. If you want to try the 3.0 bits, go grab this stuff, give us feedback, and tell us what you like.
Absolutely. With the customer I was at just this past week, or they already had all of this, well, they didn't, I don't think they had ML.NET installed, but they had all of this installed on their machines and they were actively using it. So, back in the ancient past, people were pretty uncomfortable installing our early builds, and I've definitely seen a shift where people are installing our builds and just kind of getting used to them.
So I'm going to leave Visual Studio real quick. I would leave the PowerPoint.
You got a lot. You must install the product a lot.
I work at Microsoft, and you can see that I've got a variety of .NET cores.
Including Preview 3.
Including Preview 3 on my machine. And before installing one of these types of frameworks on your machine could be a I have to erase my machine event.
Life or death event.
And the reality is these are just folders on your disk. If you want to go remove one of these, you can literally go to the folder and nuke the folders,
Yep.
and it's
all
good.
good.
So the reality is, as you're talking about going faster and innovating faster, the customer trying all these things, they can try these things because this will not destabilize your machine.
Yeah, it's low risk.
It's all low risk. And so that's one of the benefits of Core.
Yeah, absolutely. We just proved it.
So,
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, Scott.
thank you.
It's been amazing building this product.
The journey over the last
yeah.
3 or 4 years has been crazy, I'm excited. This is just we already have just to let you know, even though we're talking about .NET Core 3 and the Build conference is just coming up, we already have another year's worth of work planned.
Oh yeah, totally.
And we'll announce some of that at Build hopefully. So.
Job security, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, and hope you folks learned something about .NET Core 3, and we'll tell you more at Build.